Sound check. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way, Yorkville. Happy Monday, guys. Happy Memorial Day to all. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Thank you guys so much for joining us right now. Wow, a lot of people are watching the broadcast. So if you are watching it, guys, thank you guys so much. Right now, we're broadcasting live on the Facebook platform at Dr. Nathan Thompson, Facebook at the Wellness Way, Yorkville. Excuse me, and also on YouTube and on Rumble at Dr. Nathan Thompson. So thank you guys so much for joining. If you're watching right now, say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. If you're watching this on replay, also say hello. Let me know where you're watching from, and also just type in replay so that I know that you're going back and watching it. So tonight I'm going to talk about something that's, boy, it's going to be probably a little bit controversial. And this may be taken down if you're watching on YouTube. You never know. However, this is a hill I'm willing to die on. There's no doubt about it. And one of the things I'm going to talk about tonight is, the fact that the FDA said, "Hey, we need to be putting a warning on the COVID vaccine because of the effects that it's having on young males' heart." Okay, so shocking news: there is an increase in myocarditis. I'm going to explain to you why. I'll prove it to you that they knew about this not recently, but many years ago, and I'm going to show you why. Excuse me, and I'm going to go over to some of the reasons why it's causing issues when it comes to myocarditis, which is why it wouldn't be surprised me if this was scrubbed from YouTube pretty quickly. So just so you guys know, Facebook has updated its policies, And I think they just don't have enough data storage anymore. They're probably not making enough money. But they delete live videos, I think after, I want to say 30 or 90 days. So this live video will be gone and scrubbed off of Facebook in anywhere from 30 to 90 days. However, it does stay up on YouTube, provided they don't take it down. But it will be there on Rumble. That's why I love the Rumble platform, because they don't censor or anything like that. So make sure that you give me a follow on that so you can stay up to date with all the different things that I talk about. So I am going to talk about very, very interesting myocarditis. I'm going to show you some stats. I'm going to show you really interesting videos, as far as those who knew and didn't say anything about it. And I'm also going to explain the reason why this is affecting males, more than females, why the young age, why it's affecting so many people. And I'm going to show you some alarming statistics of truly how many people I believe have been hurt by the COV, et cetera, jibby jabby. Why so many people have been hurt by it as well. So this is not new news. And in fact, I talked about this a couple of years ago, and I was right on track when it comes to everything. But I've updated a couple of things. So just so you know, you can go back and watch a similar video from about 2 years ago. But sometimes you just got to do it again, just because people tend to forget. All right. So there is an increase in myocarditis. I'm going to explain to you why. So, guys, if you are from the Chicagoland area and you want to work with our approach, the Wellness Way approach, please make sure that you get registered for our next inflammation event, because I am going to be talking about myocarditis is an inflammatory issue. However, if you look at inflammation, how it affects so many different organ systems inside the body, and most people just don't know what inflammation is, where it's coming from, and what you can do in order to start bringing that down, start to limit that. And so if you are someone who has problems with weight loss resistance, or maybe you even have a suppressed immune system, which is actually linked to cancer, just remember your hormones, your thyroid hormones, your female reproductive organs, gosh, even testosterone is linked to chronic inflammation as well. Type 2 diabetes, autoimmunity, any kind of hormone issues. This is the body's adaptation to inflammation. And most people just don't know what it is, where it's coming from. And so this is what I go over in order to help bridge the gap between where you're at, where you want to go, and what you need to do in order to do that. So if you're from the Chicagoland area, you want to work with us directly, please get registered for the next inflammation event, which is going to be on June 10th. We just finished one up last week. June 10th, which is on a Tuesday at 6:00 p.m. All you have to do is, if you go onto our socials, you just click on our Linktree profile, and then you'll see that this pops up first. So you click on the first one, that'll take you to what's known as Eventbrite. You'll see that our inflammation event is there. If you click on that, you'll be able to get registered in about 60 seconds. The only thing that we ask, if you get registered for it, that you are committed to showing up. So get registered for our next inflammation event as well. So shocking news, guys. There is an increase in myocarditis. And in fact, if you saw, on the news, and this was, from last week, the FDA expands its COVID vaccine warning about heart side effects for young males. And here's the thing. I said something about it a long time ago, and you will see that. Okay. Now, so please make sure you share this video with other people, because I really do believe that a lot of people have been hurt. A lot of people have been maimed. A lot of people probably have been killed as a result of the COV, et cetera, jibby jabby. And I've talked ad nauseum about this, but I'm going to explain a little immunology. I'm going to explain to you why it's affecting people so negatively. But here's the thing. If we can't ask genuine questions, it's because the answer to that question needs to be suppressed. And if you go onto social media and you see these medical influencers and how they just deny, just gaslight your experience, it's almost as if, you go back and, and you say, oh, I smoked for 30 years. It gave me lung cancer. And the doctor's like, no, it didn't. There's no evidence. In fact, smoking is healthy for you. If you actually go back long enough, you will understand that doctors used to smoke, that certain doctors used to actually recommend certain types of cigarettes, and that they said there is no data that actually caused any kind of lung cancer, and that there was, and that it was suppressed. And what's interesting is that doctors, they were just the mouthpiece for the tobacco industry. They're just the mouthpiece. You would have thought that, yeah, this can cause some issues, but they just denied. And in fact, mainly because even if you look at people getting injured or hurt by I don't want to call them side effects, but the effects of certain medications, you'll see that a lot of doctors are trying to protect the pharmaceutical interests. And if you just used your brain, you would see, yeah, this is why this would be hurting you so much. But if we can't ask those questions, then maybe the answer needs to remain suppressed. And that's one of the reasons why I've done videos on it and have been taken off of YouTube just right away, I think, by their AI scrubbers, especially. So, myocarditis, guys, what is it? Well, let's go to the Mayo Clinic, all right? So, let's go to the Mayo Clinic and let's see what myocarditis is. And this is why, if you've ever taken Latin, you'll be able to understand a lot of diagnoses and how silly they actually, kind of sound, like fibromyalgia and things like that. Myocarditis is just basically, myo means muscle, card is cardio, like heart, itis is inflammation. So basically what it is inflammation of the heart muscle. So Mayo Clinic says this: myocarditis is inflammation of the heart muscle called the myocardium. This condition can reduce the heart's ability to pump blood, which is pretty important. You need to oxygenate your tissues. Myocarditis can cause chest pain, shortness of breath, and rapid or irregular heartbeats. Infection with the virus is one cause of myocarditis. Is that true? Yes, that is true. Although if you're getting myocarditis from a viral infection, then you have a really, really poor immune system response, and you can measure that. Sometimes myocarditis is caused by a medicine reaction or a condition that causes inflammation throughout the body, a systemic inflammatory reaction. Gee, I wonder what that is. Severe myocarditis weakens the heart so that the rest of the body doesn't get enough blood. Clots can form in the heart, leading to stroke or heart attack. Okay, so that comes directly from the Mayo Clinic. But here's my question: what if it's subclinical? In meaning that it's there, but we just don't call it a fire yet. So this is why there's many things that can be subclinical, and probably, why I have so many people who come to me, they're like, I just feel like garbage, but this is the response I get. I feel like garbage. And then the doctor says, your labs look normal, while the person just drowns. And it would be amazed how many times people have allowed me to, they're like, just please log into my, my chart. And I look at their my charts, and, they just feel like garbage. And then the doctor is just running labs that's only going to reveal a fire and not necessarily looking for causes. And then they just say, yeah, everything looks good. You're completely normal. But the patient says, but I just don't feel normal. And this is why too, when you talk about myocarditis, I'm like, what if it's subclinical, meaning something happens, but the person just doesn't stress himself enough to have any noticeable effect or anything like that, which also leads me to believe that there's a lot of cases of chronic brain inflammation when it comes to other jibby jabbies. And while you don't see physical effects, like obvious physical effects, one of the things that you might be seeing is a decrease in attention span, or you might see a decrease in intellect, or decrease in, math scores, reading scores, things like that. And I don't laugh at the person, but I laugh just because if you look at my kids, man alive, my kids are so much smarter than me. They are so much smarter than me. And I really do think it's not that we are stressing school or to study hard or anything like that. I really do think my kids just don't walk around with so much chronic inflammation that can be caused by hyperstimulating an immune system response over and over and over again. But if you have been this, where you just don't feel right, you just don't feel normal, the doctor runs labs and say, yeah, they're absolutely normal, and you know that something is not right, well, maybe it's just you don't have enough quote unquote disease in which they are looking for a fire, but they also don't know that a fire might be starting, and they're not going to know until those labs actually start to become abnormal. So if that's you, go ahead and put that in the chat. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about myocarditis and look at young people especially. So this comes from the International Journal of Environmental Research. Okay, so the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. The title of it is Myocarditis in Athletes Recovering from COVID-19, a Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis. So if you look at this, this is why, when doctors are like, yeah, you can get myocarditis just from COVID in and of itself. Well, they were probably reading this article. So here's what it said. They looked at 8,000 athletes from 15 studies were included in the analysis. The pooled event rate of myocarditis was at about 1%, reaching 4% in the subgroup analysis. The prevalence of COVID-19 related myocarditis in the athletic population ranges from 1 to 4%. So you notice in the athletic population, it's actually a little bit higher. And I'm going to go over with you why I think it's actually higher, because they're just discovering it because those people are stressing their hearts a little bit more. But you'll look at this and you'll say, oh, well, look at, you get an infection. And now one of the things that's happening is now you're getting myocarditis just from the infection. And this is what a lot of doctors actually said. Well, it's just from the infection. Well, I'm going to tell you something. If you are getting myocarditis from COVID, from a natural COVID infection, then you have a problem with your immune system. Holy cow. You have a problem with having a normal innate immune system response. So there's probably some issues with being immunocompromised. I'll explain that in a little bit. However, if you look at this, people will look at this and say, see, I told you, even a natural infection can cause myocarditis. But here's the limitations of this study. This is what they'll never, ever tell you. So in that study that we just looked at, they said, we are also aware that the athletes' vaccinal data were not collected, and that there is a not negligible correlation between COVID-19 vaccines and myocarditis. So when they look at this and they look at the prevalence of myocarditis, they didn't even ask the people, who they did the meta-analysis on, if they were vaccinated or not. And they actually said there is a big correlation between COVID-19 vaccines and myocarditis. So that's a huge limitation to the data, okay? So SARS, the British Medical Journal, this was from 4 years ago, not quite 4 years ago, but SARS-CoV-2 vaccination and myocarditis, or myopericarditis, or the covering of the heart, a population-based cohort study. Here's what they say. The conclusions. Vaccination with mRNA was associated with a significantly increased risk of myocarditis or myopericarditis in the Danish population. So when they looked at this, they found a significantly increased risk of myocarditis in those that were actually vaccinated, okay? However, let me back this up a little bit. There's what they say. The benefits of SARS-CoV-2 mRNA vaccination should be taken into account when interpreting these findings. Essentially, what they're saying is well, we need to figure out if the risk far out, or the benefits far outweigh the risk. Because how many people have actually said this? Oh, well, yeah, there's a small chance that something might happen, but the benefits far outweigh the risks. And I say, really? Well, here's what you need to do if you're doing a proper risk-benefit analysis. Number one, you need accurate testing. So if you look at the testing they did for COVID, which was PCR testing, and they amplified it 44 times or whatever, this was not accurate testing at all. You need accurate testing. You need an accurate cause of death. You need to understand the long-term side effects. Then you need to the effects of repeated boosters, in which I don't think they're measuring this at all. But here's one of the biggest things is that you need to compare vaccinated versus non-vaccinated individuals. And you also need to make sure that you are doing double-blind testing against a true placebo to actually see if there's harm or not. And when I say a double-blind testing against a true placebo, this is actually using something like a saline injection, which is inert, that's not going to cause any kind of reaction. What's interesting is that every single vaccine has never used a true placebo. And I've had people argue, that are in the medical space, they argue about that. They're like, see, they send me the article and it doesn't use a true placebo. So you need to do double-blind testing, and it needs to be done against a true placebo, in which this was never, ever done, okay? Now, I don't know if you can hear this or not. I'm going to hedge my bets that you can't. But this right here, let me know if you can hear this or not in the comments. Let me know if you can hear this video, because it's not, I'm going to assume that you probably can't, but this was from a podcast video a couple of years ago with Paul Offit, who is literally considered basically the high priest of vaccines. I kid you not. He is considered the foremost expert on vaccines. And this was him on video saying this: there certainly is a causal link between vaccination and myocarditis and pericarditis. No doubt about it. Then he said it's unclear as to why. So he actually admitted this, and I played this video on TikTok, and I got banned from TikTok for saying this, for just playing the video. It's is almost as if even when the experts admit it, that you can't even do anything about that. And that's why I always say, guys, this is a hill that I'm willing to die on. Okay. So Paul Offit, who's considered the world's foremost vaccine expert, actually admitted a couple of years ago that there was an increase in myocarditis due to the vaccine, yet he said we have no idea why. Now watch this. So this is coming from the same man who actually said this: each infant would have the theoretical capacity to respond to 10,000 vaccines at any one time. So he actually said you could give your baby 10,000 vaccines at one time and they would be, theoretically, they would be fine. So there was a bunch of people who said, well, let's just put your feet to the fire. And on change.org, there was a petition for Paul Offit to take 10,000 vaccines at one time, and he refused. He refused. So just kind of makes you wonder, 10,000 all at once. Well, it's like, well, then go ahead. If they're safe, then go ahead and take 10,000 instead of taking an MMR. Take 10,000 all at once. Let's see how you do. All right. All right. So, guys, this is not necessarily new news, but most people have never heard of this before. This is called Open VAERS. This is an actual public access website. And VAERS, most people have never heard of VAERS. It's the Vaccine Event Reporting System. So this is a voluntary reporting system that has been estimated to account for only 1% of vaccine injuries. So that's why the government have established the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. And many times doctors never tell you about it. Parents are just have no idea that it actually exists. And this is why that they say that if you look at the numbers, is that you could theoretically multiply this by 100%, and that only 1% of any vaccine adverse event actually gets reported. So this is the most updated information that I could find because I screenshotted this a couple of days ago. So this is through April 25th, 2025, of actually looking at 2.7 almost million adverse events. Now, they further go on to say that there's been over 38,000 COVID vaccine reported deaths, and also 1.6 million COVID vaccine adverse event reports. Now, if you look at this and you wanted to do the math, and if this truly is 1% or underreported massively, you could take this and then basically multiply it by 100, and that would come out to 3.8 million deaths from the COVID vaccine and 166 million adverse events. Kind of makes you wonder. And man, the stories I've heard that have come from people's mouths, as well. So let's look at some of the statistics when it comes to myocarditis. So this comes from the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, or openvaers.com. And when you look at this, you look at the reports of myocarditis in the tens of thousands in 2021, and then you see it go down 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. Well, why is it going down so much? Well, I think people actually saw with their own eyes what was happening, and they said, you know what? No thanks. I'm good. I'll just rely on my natural immune system function, or maybe they'll just mask in a car. I don't know what they want to do, but you've seen it go down. And I think that less and less people are actually taking what I would consider an absolute poison. Now, if you look at this from Open VAERS as well, and if you look at post-COVID vaccine and the reports of myocarditis or pericarditis, you'll actually see the highest incident was in people who were fairly young. So if you look at it from about 16 to about 24, 25 years of age, and then you see it actually going down a little bit. And I want to answer that question as far as why it actually is happening. But then when you look at like who is this affecting, and you'll see that an overwhelming majority of the reports of myocarditis were coming from males. Okay. So males. So guys, I will tell you this. There is a biological difference between men and women. So I don't care if you think that you're a man when you're a woman. There is a distinct difference between a man and a woman. And so you will think, just because I think that I'm a man, it will affect you as if you are a woman. So you see the majority of the cases are actually coming from males. So here's what begs the question. Why on earth is the response happening? Why the younger age? Why are a majority of them male? And why was this happening so often in athletes? And I'm going to answer that question here in just a second. And I think if you watch this, this will help you to have a very plausible explanation as far as why that's happening. But I look and I look and I look, and no one is trying to answer this question. And this is why I think this question needs to be answered. Okay. Here's where you need to start. So this comes from the Journal of Pathology about 21 years ago. And here's what the title of it is. It's Tissue Distribution of ACE2 Protein, the Functional Receptors for SARS Coronavirus, a first step in understanding SARS pathogenesis. Okay. Now, one of the first things you have to understand is that a virus isn't alive. A virus doesn't have some kind of mysterious, nefarious plan. A virus is not alive. A virus is just a protein. And in order for it to actually have an effect, it needs to have a receptor and it needs to be taken into the cell. So that's why a receptor for a specific virus needs to take place. If that virus has no way of entering into the body's cell, then there's nothing for you to to have to worry about. Okay, so here's what they say, and this is why doctors, and public health experts, are talking about in the past of the swine flu. Now they're talking about the bird flu, and that just never happened. That it never had any kind of receptor for it. Although they were putting all this fear porn about it and trying to gain some kind of notoriety, doing, um, bird flu updates. I mean, it was just absolute, just malarkey. So here's what they say. ACE2 mRNA is known to be present in virtually all organs. Okay. So it's known as the ACE2 receptor, the angiotensin converting enzyme to receptor. And that's why if you've ever heard of an ACE inhibitor, which is a blood pressure medication, basically what it does is it blocks the conversion of angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, which blocks vasoconstriction, things like that happening in your arteries. So ACE2 mRNA is known to be present in virtually, now listen to this, virtually all organs. Okay. Now that protein is found in the oral and nasal mucosa, the nasopharynx, or, so like into the throat, in the back of the throat, the lungs, the stomach, the small intestine, the colon, the skin, the lymph nodes, the thymus, the bone marrow, spleen, liver, kidney, and brain. So it's basically all over. This is why the primary route for COVID was in the nasopharynx or in the lungs. However, there are some people too that noticed gastrointestinal symptoms going on when they had it. So ACE2 was also present, now listen to this, in arterial and venous endothelial cells and arterial smooth muscles. Okay. Now, if you want to look at this further, this is where your body has ACE2 receptors. So think of this. It's in the brain, which is why some people had COVID, had a lot of brain fog or things like that. It's in the eyes, the nasal cavity, the oral cavity. Yes, on the thyroid. But listen to this. Heart and blood vessels, lungs, liver, gallbladder, kidney and bladder, the stomach, the pancreas, the intestines, reproductive organs, which is very important because a lot of women notice some reproductive changes taking place also into the skin. But I want you to look at this. You have ACE2 expression on the heart and on the blood vessels. On the heart and on the blood vessels, which means this, okay? So if you get COVID, then really that infection is supposed to be handled around the barrier. It's not supposed to become systemic. And if you have a normal immune system response, body's going to handle it at the barriers. And this is how we're supposed to get sick. This is why, if you look at any kind of vaccination decides to bypass the barriers to try to have some kind of immune system response. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense, because where you're supposed to have that infection is actually around the barriers. The barriers are going to be the lungs, the gastrointestinal system, in the pharynx, in the skin. That's a barrier that separates between internal and external environment. So why this kind of response? Why are they having a response in the heart? Number one, infectious response is designed to be handled at the barriers, not where it's supposed to happen away from the organs, not supposed to happen systemically within the body. So I want you to think of this. If I have COVID and I have a proper immune system response, I'm going to have that response at the barriers, which is why it can happen at the lungs. But what happens if I decide I'm going to bypass all the barriers? I'm going to inject it into my body, and I'm going to have my immune cells that are going to start to make a spike protein. Now that spike protein can start to circulate systemically all over the body, and then it can actually be taken in by anything that's expressing ACE2 receptors, which can also be the heart. Now think of this. Well, then if someone has an immune system reaction, which is called itis or inflammation, now they're going to have that immune system reaction, and it can become very systemic at that point. And this is why any kind of infection is supposed to be handled at the barriers, and it's never ever supposed to become systemic. Number two, why the younger age? So why was it happening more in younger men and not older men? Well, here's the thing. Younger people in general are going to have a much more robust immune system response. It's almost as if it was kind of like this. Because I have done several broadcasts in which, if someone was on a corticosteroid or they're on some kind of immune modulating, medication because they had autoimmunity or something like that, and the doctor was giving them a medication in order to just basically just slam the immune system. Well, one of the things they found is wow, when we started to suppress the immune system and we gave them the COV, et cetera, jibby jabby, nothing was happening. Interesting, right? And so it was almost as if the stronger response they had of the immune system, the more they were having a response of inflammation. And if you looked at in general, younger people 18 to 24 are going to have a lot stronger immune system response than someone who's 75 years of age. And so that also includes where they're having that ACE2 expression that taken into the body, and then the immune system comes by and says, this doesn't belong here, and we need to get rid of you. And that means that they're having an immune system response. So it's almost as if is young people, they always say, young people, this is not an issue with you. And so they had the immune system to be able to handle it. And it's as if the people who couldn't handle it, rather than try to build up their immune system, they told them to get the COV, et cetera, jibby jabby. And then one of the things that happens is nothing happened. So they couldn't even mount any kind of response, and that's why one of the things that you just saw is you just saw people continually getting sick. But the people who already had a strong immune system were the ones who are the most affected by it, but they are also the ones who have easily could have cleared out this virus on their own, okay? Now, the third thing you have to ask is why was this happening in a large majority of males? Now, I'm going to try to answer this question so that it makes sense to you, okay? So why the majority of them with males? So this comes from the Asian Journal of Andrology a couple of years ago. It is titled Testosterone, Cardiomyopathies, and Heart Failure, a Narrative Review. Now, here's what they say. In myocarditis, testosterone directly promotes this type of inflammation that leads to fibrosis and influences viremia with virus localization, okay? So now they start to talk about males and females because the difference between males and females is hormonal. You will see males have a higher level of testosterone, or they're supposed to, and that females will have lower testosterone but a higher level of estradiol, specifically if they are, fertile and, having a cycle, okay? So in Cancer's Journal 2022, February of 2022, the impact of estrogens and their receptors on immunity and inflammation during infection. Here's what they go on to say. One of the largest determinants of the outcomes of such infections is the host immune system response. There you go. It's all about the host. It's not about the actual virus. Too weak of a response can lead to enhanced spread by the pathogen, while an overstimulated response can lead to immune-induced tissue damage. I wonder what they're doing that is causing an overstimulated response, not only with the COVID vaccine, but with a lot of other vaccines too. It has become widely accepted that estrogens, a class of sex hormones, are capable of dramatically altering the responses of host cells to microbes. I want to pause and I want to ask you this. If you've ever had a woman who's pregnant, and while they're pregnant, there is a higher amount of progesterone that's being circulated. There's a lot higher amounts of estrogens being circulated. And if a woman has any kind of autoimmunity, a woman will tell you, man, during pregnancy, it was as if I didn't have it. I've never felt so good during pregnancy. Well, if you have a high circulating amount of estrogens, that's one thing that's going to help. And then the other thing too is while you're pregnant, you are a little bit immunocompromised, and that's by design because you don't want your immune system going after the actual baby because it's 50% of that baby is not your own DNA. And this is also why, have you ever noticed why doctors say, if you're pregnant, you need to get the flu vaccine, you need to get all these vaccines because they consider you immunocompromised, okay? You're not per se immunocompromised, but you do have less of an inflammatory response, which is why if you have any kind of autoimmunity during pregnancy, this is why generally you will feel so much better, okay? So estrogens have a protective effect on inflammation, okay? Now, here's what they say, the conclusions. Traditionally, the purpose of estrogens and other sex hormones was thought to primarily be the regulation of the development of the reproductive organs. It's now apparent, however, that these steroid hormones exert a wide range of effects on other systems. In general, it has been shown that estrogens exhibit an anti-inflammatory effect that is associated with improved outcomes during severe infection and wound healing and repair, okay? So ladies, you do have an advantage over this, especially when it comes to heart disease. So here's what's interesting. If you compare men and women and the percent of a population who has, cardiovascular disease, you will see that men dominate the conversation until a woman goes into menopause, and you'll see her estrogens go in decline, and that's by design. So if you look at this, right around here is when a woman most likely is going to be going into menopause. And don't talk to me about perimenopause, please. But now you see, as the woman gets older, they start to catch up and they actually exceed men when it comes to cardiovascular disease. So maybe the reason why it's affecting men so much is actually because there's a protective effect of estrogens, and I've talked a lot about this too. Why you'll see, your cholesterol or your LDL go way up during menopause. There was something that was going on that was protecting you during your cycle. Then your estrogens go down during menopause, and then you actually see the cholesterol actually go up. And this is why inflammation is really the main culprit that's driving this. So you'll see that women then exceed men when it comes to cardiovascular disease once you have enough time of those estrogens actually declining, okay? Now, if you talk about any type of myocarditis or anything like that, this is the average free testosterone of men, and you'll see that, on average, if you look at the whole population, men's free testosterone is going to be highest from 20 to 25, and then you'll see it go down as a person ages. Now, I really don't believe that it's supposed to go down. I just think that a lot of men just don't know how to take care of themselves, and that's why you'll see a decline in testosterone, because a lot of men aren't doing any physical activity. A lot of men are obese, carrying a lot of body fat, and those are some of the reasons that cause testosterone to decline. But if you look at this, the free testosterone highest at 20 to 25, and then if you look at the amount of myocarditis, pericarditis, look at this. So 20 to 25, and then you see it in men when their testosterone is highest, and you see it decline right along with testosterone as well. So I think there's a big hormonal component when it comes to that affecting men, why it's affecting more men than females. Okay. So why the majority males? The question I'm going to ask is does testosterone contribute more while estrogens, specifically estradiol, exert a more protective effect? That's the question that you have to ask. Why also did we see this in a majority of athletes? Why did we see this in a majority of athletes? Now watch this. Here's the question I'm going to ask. What tests do doctors use to diagnose coronary artery disease or heart arrhythmias? What's a common test that they do? And it's called a stress test. Okay. So, in order to see if there's something wrong going on with the heart, well, maybe if you start stressing the heart a little bit more, some of these things will actually come out. And this is why, when I take x-rays on someone, many times when we're taking like a lumbar x-ray from the front, is I'll do it sitting. And people are like, well, why are you doing it sitting? Because I'm like, because when you sit and you exert more force down on the spine, it'll help me to see where things are actually failing. And so if you want to see what's failing in your heart, we'll start to stress it. This is known as a stress test. Okay. But the other thing too that I want to go over or ask the question is well, who stresses their heart the most? Is it athletes or is it the general population? So it's always going to be athletes. They're stressing their heart the most. The question I'm going to ask is how many young people, how many don't even do enough exercise to even stress the heart? And I think it's a lot of people, which would beg the question, could that mean that the number of cases of myocarditis could be even higher, but they remain what you would call subclinical, meaning you just can't see it because not enough people are actually stressing the heart the way that it's supposed to. And this is why I think it's happening in a lot more people than what people are giving credit for. The last thing I want to say is this, is why is it then? Why is it that two people can be exposed to the same virus and have a dramatic different result? And I have talked about this ad nauseum. Let me give you an example, okay? Because, there were some people, who said, oh, I refuse to do this, I refuse to do that. And I'm looking at their immune panel. I'm like, actually, you should be very concerned with any virus, whether that's COVID, whether that's the flu or anything, because you don't have very many immune system cells to be able to fight anything. So if you look at this is what is known as an expanded immune system panel. And yes, you can get this from your doctor, although they'll probably charge you $3,500 for it, and probably insurance won't cover it. But we run it here, and I think it's $200 to run this test. Don't quote me on it because I never look at the prices of the test. But you can see that this person's absolute CD3 cells, their CD8 cells, which are your viral inhibiting cells, also known as your tumor suppressing cells. And you can see that this person is very, very low into this. And when you look at this person probably would have a hard time with any kind of virus. They also, if you decided to get the flu vaccine or whatever, they probably wouldn't even make an appropriate immune system response, to it. I know that regardless, even if their immune system is strong, they wouldn't make a proper immune system response. But this is why doctors say, in order for a vaccine to work, you have to have an immune system. In order for your body to make antibodies, you have to have an enough immune system cells. And this is what doctors were just banging their head against a wall with, because people are coming in they are on steroid medications and they had a low immune system response, probably very suppressed immune system response. And then they couldn't figure out why, these people weren't making any kind of antibody response. And my answer to this is because you can't make something from nothing. So this person here, regardless, one of the things they should do is they should focus on figuring out why their immune system is depleted, why their immune system is just so exhausted. And it might be due to a chronic viral infection. Heck, it might be even due to mold mycotoxicity. It might be due to chronic blood sugar issues. There's a lot of different reasons why, but this is the conversation that needs to be had. This is why I say we need to start making immune systems strong again and not playing, healthcare communism where everyone gets punished when in reality, we should have been testing these people and then really looked at the people who had a low immune system response and then really started to build that back up, rather than just, start to just make everyone suffer as a result. Now, just remember this, guys. They were wrong. They were wrong. They were wrong about the susceptibility. They were wrong about the deaths. They were even more wrong about the solution. They were wrong. They were completely wrong, which begs the question, what else are they wrong about? What else are they wrong about? And I am not waiting for an apology, because at this point, we should have gotten one. And you're never, ever going to get an apology. But they were wrong about it. You have to ask the question, what else are they wrong about? I'm going to leave you this. When you tear out a man's tongue, you're not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might say. And they try to rip out my tongue. And the only thing that it did is it just strengthens people's resolve. They saw it. And if you're willing to be intellectually honest, you saw it too. When you tear out a man's tongue, you're not proving him to be a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might say. And that's why, guys, this is a hill I'm willing to die on over and over again. Tuesday, June 10th at 6 o'clock p.m., our next inflammation event. If you're from the Chicagoland area, click that button right now and get registered for it right now, because we'll start the process of what it takes in order for you to be happy, healthy, and in order for you to start, moving in the right direction. But who needs to be at that inflammation event? Well, let me ask you a question. Do you want to be manipulated, or do you want to be restored? Are you sick and tired of doing the same things over and over and getting the same result? It's time for a different approach, and it's time for a different way of thinking. So get registered for that inflammation event that's coming up June 10th at 6 o'clock p.m. right here in this office at the Wellness Way, Yorkville. So is there an increase in myocarditis? Absolutely. And I went over the reasons why. And I think that this is massively underreported. This is why when people say, what do I need to do in order to get my health back? The first thing I tell people is go by design and stop interfering. Oh my goodness. Start going how the body was designed and how the body was created, and stop going against how the body was designed and created, because so much of what we do goes against the design of how God created the body. So guys, I hope you found this interesting. Not only that, guys, please do me a favor. Please share this video with others. And make sure that you share this with other people. And if you don't follow our page, please make sure that you follow this page. And if you're on Facebook, just remember this will be deleted probably within about 30 days. And ask Facebook to set up some more data centers so that they can actually save this video. But this will be on YouTube. This will stay on Rumble, Lord willing. So make sure that you go back and watch this video, or share this with someone who needs to hear this as well. So next week I will be going live. Give me a topic, because I haven't figured that out yet, but I'll go live on something, maybe a question and answer or something like that. So I appreciate all of you guys for watching this video. Thank you very much, Nancy, Eileen, Chrissy. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys watching. And again, please share this video. And I wish you guys the best. Happy Memorial Day again. Thank you for those who have served. Thank you to those who have given the ultimate sacrifice so that we can have our freedom, and that we can most importantly have our freedom of speech. So guys, be well, be blessed. Remember who you are. I'll see you guys next week.